kind of a light group tonight. All right.
It's called a lot of things for life.
Lighten the bridges. That's okay. We got a lot to study. We always have people watching us online. I always get responses. Whenever we go visit people there, they didn't watch us on Sunday nights. If they can't get out, that's the problem.
Chapter 21.
We're gonna the last part, verse 33 of chapter 21, and then we're going to start into 22. And so you'll note that it says Exodus 21. It's just
somebody
tight.
marked over and put 22 on there. That's why I'm
That's why I do that.
like,
Because it's 22. It's 22. All right, we'll open the prayer and then we'll get started. Lord, thank you for this evening. Thank you for this time together. I just pray that you just take this study. You show us the heart and the spirit of what your law means to us and how we should look at this. And it's more about respecting others. It's more about showing compassion. It's more about how we treat our neighbors. Lord, just bless this study. Just give the Spirit what you want me to teach you tonight, how we need to approach it and discuss it. Now, this is all for your glory, your honor. And I thank you for this time. Just ask you to be with us. In your precious name, amen. All right, keep fading in and out. All right. So, last week we talked about some of the animal laws. If your animal was to injure somebody, and it was an aggressive animal, you're to destroy the animal. You cannot eat the meat. You can give it to dogs to consume, but you are to get rid of that meat. And that was for health reasons, as well as we talked about the chemicals of adrenaline and everything else in an animal that gets aggressive. It can affect our own bodies chemically. And this was to keep us pure, keep us from harm, or the Israelites. So tonight we're going to look at, start in verse 32, or 33, because this is where we left off. Okay? It says, and if a man shall open a pit, that means he digs a pit, or if a man shall open a pit or shall dig a pit, and not cover it, an ox or an ass falls therein, the owner of the pit shall make it good, means make payment, and give money unto the owner of them, and the dead animal shall be his. This is starting to cut out. So this is what happens. Say Herman takes his dozer, he digs a pit. Or he goes and he uncovers a pit that was already done. His neighbor has some cattle. Those cattle go and they fall into that pit. A hermit is responsible for paying the owner of the cattle, but then he ends up with a dead cattle. And it does not say in there. It doesn't say you can't eat that meat. You can't consume that meat. You can't. It didn't say anything about that because it was unintentional. It caused injury or death to the animal. Then in 35, it says that if one man's ox hurts another, that means these two oxen are fighting with each other, and one of them dies or injures. If one animal dies, then what they are to do is to take the live one, go sell it, split the money equally, and that is the payment. Now, it says, or if it be known in verse 36, it says, or if it be known that the ox was used or aggressive in the past, is what this is talking about. If this ox was known to be aggressive and the owner refused to keep that animal pinned up or supervised, and it does kill another person's ox, then he has to pay restitution plus the dead animal becomes his. So there are these are very specific for livestock. We've seen that with ranchers. If you've ever talked to a rancher gets upset whenever some people come on. He has some people come on and get rid of maybe some wild hogs or something, and they end up shooting his livestock. Well, how are you going to compensate me? Well, you let me on the property. You told me I could shoot any of all the hogs I wanted to. Yeah, but that didn't include my cattle. So there has to be some compensation. Same here with these laws of Israel. These laws were meant to show and provide respect for each other's property, each other's rights, and happiness. Now, as we look into chapter 22, we're going to look at different laws regarding the protection of personal property. Now, on your notes, you're going to see, I got on there, chapter 21 or 22 is protection of personal property. The commandments that cover the personal property issue is Commandment 8 and Commandment 10. That deals with theft. It also deals with covetousness. Okay? We're talking two different things, but they feed off of each other. So as we look in the first verse of 22, it says, if a man shall steal an ox or a sheep, and then he kills it or sells it, he shall restore either 5 oxen for 1 ox, or 4 sheep for a sheep. So on your notes there, it says, we're talking about stealing someone's property. Now, how this affects your commandments 8 and 10 is this. First, you see the item you want. It creates a desire, which in its turn is coveting it. So then you covet the item. And then third, it follows up with from the heart, the mind, to an action, and you go steal it. You become a thief. Item D, we got there, it says, there are consequences to all your actions. And we see what the consequences of stealing and coveting is for livestock. The consequences, you are to pay compensation to the victim. And some, we're fixing to read, you can be paying for it with your life. So let's look at verse 2 right quick. It says, if the thief is to be found breaking in, and he is attacked, and he dies, there shall be no blood shed or guilt upon the household owner. If the sun is risen, the sun's already up, there shall be guilt of shedding blood. For he should make full restitution. If he have nothing, then he should be sold for his theft. Okay. So your compensation if you break into a house at night and you're stealing stuff, deadly force was validated. Okay? So you could, at night, it might be your death for stealing something. However, during daylight hours, from sunrise until sunset, if you did kill an intruder, then you were guilty of murder. It falls into, it is because you can see who the person is in the daylight rather than in the night, right, Dad? The more visible.
The law has changed.
The laws changed.
If somebody is on your property, daylight or dark, and they're either causing criminal mischief or attempting to steal your property, and you catch them, you now have the right to use deadly force.
Sorry.
Back then,
Back
if
then,
you seen who it was probably was your neighbor. If you seen him. And you had the right to stop them, but you didn't have the right to use deadly force.
it was common sense, is what it was. When we look at the spirit of this, we're looking at the spirit of the law. These Israelites have got to have something structured, something clear and in detail, because they don't always see or understand what is given to them by laws. And then we read about if you're caught during the day, you have to pay. Okay? If you can't pay the restitution, guess what? You get sold for the price of the loss of what you took. Okay? So you're going to be sold you're going to be sold to be a servant or a slave. If you can't pay the bill. So being caught in the possession of stolen goods is what we're going to look at next. It says in verse 4, if the thief is found with the stolen items in his possession, whether it be an ox or an ass or a sheep, he shall restore double what those animals are worth. So no harm to the goods. Okay, being caught in possession, that was just a conviction on its own. You're convicted. You didn't do any harm. This was before the thief would be able to sell off to a vendor or to somebody, or have it slaughtered and sold. The payment is the double of what is taken. It compensates the loss of the day of work that animal would have been able to produce, or whatever. Plus, just taking the possession itself. This is teaching us about respect. When livestock destroys the farmer's fields or crops is what we're fixing to go to next. It says, if a man shall cause a field or vineyard to be eaten by their animal, and shall put in his beast and shall feed in another man's field, then the owner of the animal must give the best of his own for restitution. Okay? So what this is saying is, when livestock destroys a farmer's field or crops, payments required by the owner of the livestock. The payment is to be the best out of that owner's field. Okay? The reason being is because it's compensated for the money lost off of that crop. And this is another action to show personal responsibility and respect for your neighbor and others around you. You ever have those neighbors that seem to always put junk on your side of the fence? And you're like, really? They have no respect? You know? The thing is sometimes they don't care. There's sometimes that they're just not over there.
I have a neighbor over there that just turned his sheep loose and lets them run. I mean, he just opened the gate and let them out. And he's been turned in 5 or 6 times, and I've actually called sheriff's office myself. And I was informed Texas was an open range country, they couldn't do anything about it.
I know when you travel west, you have to have a sign. And it has to have a cow on it, and it has to have on the bottom open range.
See that in New Mexico and Colorado.
Okay? And they did
On
that
820 that runs around through there.
on 820.
They have signs up there so often. Cat watch for live
And-
cattle.
And it wasn't only to let you know that they're grazing and they're just walking around, but they're not responsible if they don't get out of the road.
Okay, now, the law in Texas is if your animal is out, no matter what it is, if your animal is out and you know who possesses that animal gets out and you run over it and does damage to your vehicle, the owner of that animal is responsible for the repair of your vehicle.
I've had to run over them several times, so I've had to come to a complete stop or get over the party and get around.
But the Texas law as of September the 1st is if you know who the owner of that livestock is, no matter what it is, if that animal causes you to have a wreck, the owner of that animal is responsible for your repair. Now that's the law in Texas now.
And that's the thing is, Harvey, you and Kenny probably experienced this more with those sheep and the goat that you found in the front yard. Because you live where there's ranches, you live where there's farmland, and so you see this more. In town, we see it whenever people can't keep their animals leashed or put inside gated areas and boundaries, and they end up on the news that a dog mauled a little girl, or something of the tune of 2 dogs got in a fight. Somebody tried to break it up and ended up getting injured. And the thing is these people will say, well, that dog never hurt a single soul. You got to remember, animals are naturally wild. They were domesticated by us. That doesn't necessarily mean they're not wild. And Herman knows this for a fact. You can take a mountain lion and you can tame a mountain lion from a kitten, from a cub. But one day that mountain lion will snap and turn on you in a heartbeat, because that's the way it was bred. It was bred as a predator. It wasn't bred as a pet.
got tickled, I say tickled, about half scared me. Then I went and bought registered bulls to run with his cows. And we had a neighbor bull that would break over at that fence in his pasture. And Dad run him out good every time. And one day Dad called that bull over in the pasture. Dad got his shotgun and he went down there to that neighbor's house, told him, said, you get that bull out, if I ever catch you in my pasture again, I ain't gonna worry about the bull, I'm gonna come get you. You know that bull never got in Daddy's pasture again.
But that's the thing, is we need to remember, we domesticated animals, but they still have the natural tendencies, the natural breeding of what they were bred, what they were created for. There were some that were created for predatory purposes. That is to help with the ecosystem that God created. God created an ecosystem so specific. The cleaners, as we would say, those that control the population, keep populations of certain animals from becoming overgrazing fields and overgrazing lands. And so we must respect that. When we put our hand in it and domesticate something, we affect God's creation, and it's kind of contaminating it to an extent. You call it this, scientists say, we're messing it up. No, keep hands out of it. Let them be natural. But stop trying to rescue them. You know what? It's survival of the fittest by God's creation and design. Right on. When we take that away and we make it inhumane to let that happen naturally, well, I hate to tell you, it happened before we were even in this country or on this land. When you look at the buffalo, we're the ones that made them almost extinct. They were here for a purpose. And that's the thing, is man has destroyed more. He's good at destroying. He's better at destroying than he is ensuring creation stays whole. So these laws are in the intent to enjoy God's creation and make sure that God's creation doesn't get out of hand in their lives. Next, we get to talk about everybody's favorite thing, wildfires. In verse 6, it says, if a fire breaks out and it catches thorns, so that the stacks of the corn, or the standing corn, or the field, be consumed, and that it will be kindled with a fire, shall surely make restitution. Okay, what this is saying is this. Property damage in the event of a fire, someone clearing land to prepare for farming. Herman, you know very well that there are people that will use torches, and they'll use control burns is what they call it. And they do this in forests and stuff. And this is what this is kind of the spirit of that is. They're clearing the land to prepare it for farming. Now what happens is the fire gets out of control and it starts burning neighbors' fields. Then what happens? The one who started that fire gets to pay the restitution. Notice, it's not limited by the number of fields that were damaged or destroyed or crops. It just says, if you started a fire, you pay the restitution. That's important. In our state, how many wildfires were started because somebody was careless? They were burning in a burn pit. but they weren't monitoring it, and they walked away. The wind caught some embers and started a fire. All of Amarillo North was totally scorched, from the Canadian River all the way down to about where our house is in Amarillo. And it was started because somebody was trying to clear land by burning it, controlling burning. I like Herman's side of it. You just take a dozer and you just start clearing it off. You start running over it, you start scraping it off, right? We talked about that. It's less chance of a fire starting. Because controlled burns, how do you control a burn? You gotta have a fire break. Right, Herman? We talked about that. It's a responsibility of the individual. You see, whenever the counties put out these burn bans, how many people really listen to that? You got a burn ban in effect, but they're out there doing fireworks, or they're out there. We even had cars pull along off the shoulder onto the grass, and the grass was about knee high, and it was completely dry. And people don't understand the converter on the bottom, the catalytic converter, is so hot, it ignites the grass and fires it. Now we've seen it.
It don't take long.
That's right. And we've seen the evidence of what happens with that. If you drive down 20 and you go towards Big Spring and go towards Midland, the burn sections in the medians, where either somebody blew out a top, there's somebody blew up to the side of the road, the heat from the engine, the heat from the catalytic converter, ignited the grass.
Another thing that happens real regular, I've seen a lot of, is where you're pulling the trailer and your chains are getting late.
Yes.
That spark, no spark,
I've
that's
seen
them
that.
engines on fire.
Trains.
People throwing cigarettes out.
Throwing cigarettes out. It's disrespectful to those that have to live in those areas. But there were so many times that when we lived in Amarillo, the fires would get so close to our property, they were coming down the roads. Fire trucks were showing up, and we were out there with water hoses. We were watering the property lines, and I learned that I needed a fire break beforehand. So what I did, took my riding mower, put it all the way to the lowest point at the beginning of the season. And I made me a true fire break around my whole property. The only way that a fire would start is if an ember blew over and came across that fire break area into the grass. And so when we look at this law, this is a very good common sense law. If you destroy somebody's property, whether it's unintentional or not, if you started that fire, then be responsible enough to compensate those. Because they have lost their livelihood. They have lost their earnings. It is just a simple respect for others' property. Next thing we're going to look at is safeguarding personal property. This gets interesting. It is very detailed. It talks about, this is where some of our banking and loans from our banking system they differ greatly. And we'll go over this. All right. So in verse 7 it says, if a man shall deliver unto his neighbor money and I love this, this version, or stuff to keep, and it be stolen out of a man's house, if the thief is to be found, let him pay double. If the thief is not found, then the master of the house shall be brought unto the judges to see whether he had put his hand unto his neighbor's goods. Okay. So this is what it's saying. This was common practice in biblical times. Okay? You don't have banking institutions. All right? You can't go put your stuff in a safe deposit box. You can find somebody that has the protection, that can provide the protection and safeguarding of your stuff. Okay? So what you do is you give them your possessions. Now, this is what happens. The person that is in charge of watching or safeguarding those, somehow a burglar or a thief comes from the outside and is broke in to that place, and they're going to steal the stuff. And your thief is caught. The thief will pay double for what was taken. That double is for that owner that had the stuff, that entrusted, and it was also for the owner of the household to be compensated because of the broken trust between the two men that had one that had the stuff and one that was safeguarding the stuff. Okay? So that's why the double is in there. It is all common sense. The thing is sometimes people miscalculate. Oh, well, it was the owner's. All the owner was paid double, not the safeguard. But it was paid both. Number 2, it says, the thief is not caught. Then look what happens. The person safeguarding stuff has to go in front of the judges. We ain't even got judges yet. Right? All we have is Moses. Moses is the judge, the jury. Okay? Remember what Jethro told him? You can't do this by yourself. You're going to have to appoint people to help you out. So he appointed the elders of each of the tribes to help him out. He's using Aaron as well, and Joshua. But we hadn't even got to the book of Judges, which was a time and the age of the judges of Israel. They would hear things, they would discuss different laws and give the punishment or the restitution that was supposed to be paid. But here we're seeing a prelude to the judges over Israel. They will determine one of two things. The person safeguarding the property, are you an accessory to the murder, to the theft? Did you have your hand into what happened? Are you going to profit from the double payments? A conspiracy. This is the question of integrity, honesty of a person's heart. If you're not found guilty, the judge will say, you're not found guilty, you pay nothing. You will get half of that double, and it will be taken care of. So it's important for us to understand that when we look at this law, that the person taking responsibility for safeguarding something will become totally responsible for what happens. Another thing that we need, that the spirit of that law tells us is, when somebody asks you to do something, think about it seriously. And make it as though it was your own possessions. If you treat it like it's your own possessions, you will guard it with your life. Oh, well, that's just Joe's. What does it really matter? And growing up, Dad, I know he'd get frustrated because I would borrow a tool, maybe it would break or something. But it was very rare. But there were people that would borrow tools from us, and I've had it happen to me. Borrow a tool from us and bring it back. And I'm like, that wasn't the tool I gave you. Or somebody called and said, oh, well, somebody broke into my truck and took your tools as well as mine. And expected me to say, oh, that's fine, I was buying another one. But that's the thing, it's when we're entrusted with things that other people have us safeguard, we need to take it seriously. God entrusted us with His church. You ever think about that? It's God's church. It's not my church. It's God's church. God entrusted us to safeguard it. Right, Dad?
But He also trusts us with the children that He gives us.
The gift, the blessing that He gives us. How about the ministries of our church? Are we to safeguard them? So it goes beyond what we see. Just in word. It goes straight to the heart. And that's where we need to place the spirit of these laws of safeguarding. Because we can look at this and we can say, well, we don't have any livestock. We have banks to put our money in. Well, what happened? What happened before the federal government insured banks? The crash of the stock market, the run on the banks. Well, your money's not here, but I safeguarded it to you. You got in a lot of trouble. The thing is we take it for granted when we give the bank our money. Now, we don't even see it. It's all done on a card. It's all done from a phone. It's all done by numbers. And I learned this when I was doing accounting in the military. You know how government always tells you how much they're spending, how much the debt is? That's virtual. Okay? Those numbers are virtual. The real numbers are staring. Because if all of the world was to call in and say, United States, we want you to pay on all your money that was loaned. I got a question. If the bank came up to you today, you have your loans out, or your mortgages, and they said, we want you to pay them in full today. You have until 2 o'clock this afternoon. Would you be able to do it? See, those are the things we look at. The responsibility, the safeguarding. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is the thief is caught stealing someone's possessions. I love this. let's see how we're at. For all manner of trespass, whether it be for an ox or an ass or for sheep, for raiment, or for any manner of lost thing which another challenges to be his, the cause of both parties shall come before the judges, and whom the judges shall condemn, he shall pay double unto his neighbor. Okay? What this is saying is this simple thing. All right. If I loan something out to you, if the thief is caught trying to sell someone's possessions, so Harmony goes down here to Lorraine Feed Store. Just pretending there. And he sees Shady trying to sell something that belongs to Herman, livestock wise. Let's say it was a turtle, just to be safe. And Herman goes up and he says, Doyle, what are you doing? That is my turtle. What are you doing with my turtle? The thing is, understand, Herman got caught red-handed. He identified his stuff. But that's not where it ends, does it, Herman? You got to go before the judge. Both of them. Both of these must go. And the judgment is found that Herman stole that turtle from Doyle. Doyle's going to get a payment of double because of Herman and his decision that he thought he ought to take that turtle and go sell it, and what it is. Another instance of the responsibility that we have and respect that we should have for our neighbors. This follows the neighborly way of life. The peace with others is what this is. And we need to take this very seriously as in the spirit of the law, because without this peace with each other, we cannot live a peaceful life. You ever live next to the neighbor that was a nightmare neighbor for you? They were always either loud, they were always either taking stuff that wasn't theirs, maybe parking on part of the driveway, or taking part of the street. Maybe they parked in a spot where the mail person couldn't deliver the mail, and you got the notification that your mail was going to be stopped if that car was parked there the next day. We all have these little confrontations and little disagreements with our neighbors. These laws here shows us that Israel had disagreements between each other. But God was showing them, don't wait until it comes to murder. Take care of it before it becomes that big. Take care of it before anger and bitterness set into your heart. That's the spirit of God's law to Israel, but that's for us, the spirit of the law for us. Can't you imagine trying to keep all of these 613 laws? Trying to go through, is that person stealing something? Okay, what am I going to do next? Is it my property, their property, whose property? The next thing we look at is safeguarding livestock guidelines. It says in verse 10, if a man delivers unto his neighbor an ass or an ox or a sheep or any beast to keep, that means he safe keeps it, and it dies or it's hurt or driven away without a man sinning, any witnesses, no witnesses, then an oath of the Lord be between them both. And he hath not put his hand to his neighbor's goods. That means the neighbor is not guilty. And the owner of it shall accept. You have to take it as it is. And thou shalt make, and he shall not make it good. And if it be stolen from him, he shall make restitution unto the owner. If it be torn into pieces, then he has to take those pieces, and he has as a witness and a testimony, and it has to be presented to show that it was not the person's fault. What that is saying, this is relating to the loaning out of anything. Like we had talked earlier about a tool. This is talking about livestock. It's either injured or it dies in the possession of the person it was being loaned to. It talks about taking an oath. An oath is a promise. An oath is something that is taken seriously. Okay? An oath is it's right underneath a covenant. This is kind of cut out. So what's happening is this. The responsibility when somebody loans you something, treat it like it was your own. Okay? And I gotta apologize to my dad because there were sometimes I would borrow tools and stuff, and maybe they break. Only when I began to buy my own tools did I understand. If you borrow it and break it, either pay me the money or go get another one. Or let me know. When you have kids, you find out real quick. They think power tools grow on trees. Now I understand what Dad was trying to teach me.
You know, when I was growing up, my first car, I'm the one that paid the down payment on it. I paid it off, I bought all mine, everything I got, because I was raised that way. And you appreciate it, and you learn, and then that makes you appreciate other people's stuff, because you know what it's like. But these kids nowadays, the things you just bought, they don't know how to appreciate anything.
Just give it to them.
Yes, they don't know how to take care of it or be respectful.
I have a neighbor. I don't understand. But it seems like they're always coming over to borrow something. And I'm like, why don't you just go get it? Oh, but I want to go fishing. Okay. If you need to borrow something from me, that's fine. But when you decide to go fishing, money that you use for the bait, the gas, and everything else, you could have bought whatever you were. It's easier to borrow my stuff than it is to go get your own. And that's how some people are nowadays. Have you ever loaned something to somebody in this recent generation, and you give them, you loan them something, you might get a portion of it back if it's in one piece. If not, you get an explanation and a long story of what happened and why it's not returned in the same condition it was loaned in. I've had that happen. I loaned out a drill or something, and they came back and they were like, just don't understand. I was just drilling holes and putting screws in boards, and then all of a sudden, it just started smoking. Well, did you think you might want to give it a break and stop when it got hot? You know? So this is a teaching for us to be respectful of others' property when it's loaned. You know, all the time, and this is the thing. Dad loans me his trailer. I'm terrified. Not that I'll wreck it, but the other people that I'm driving around will hit me. That's my whole worry. The whole trip. Somebody hitting me and hitting that trailer, not me hitting the trailer on anything. Even Arlis was scared. She goes, I don't even want to drive it. That's your job. And that was the whole thing. I safeguarded that trailer like it was mine because I know how much money it costs to replace and repair something like that.
My dad always taught me, anytime you borrow anything, you return it in better shape than it was when you got it.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, you talking about that, I borrowed my brother's pickup one time, and did want to go to Dallas to help move some of my stuff back, and on the way there, truck threw a rock and broke the windshield. I got back, I was crying, I'll pay for it, and he started laughing, he said, I got insurance, don't worry about it. But I was upset because it was in my care, and that happened. And it was nothing I could do about it, but still the fact was. And but he had his insurance, so he said, don't worry about it, I don't have to pay anything, so.
It's like right now, Michael doesn't have a car, so we're letting him drive. Well, he's on our insurance. We're letting him drive the pickup. The first thing I told him was, you ain't driving this pickup into the ground like you're driving past cars. This is not a hot rod. This is a vehicle, has over 100,000 miles, and is good for another 100,000 to 200,000 miles. And you will take care of it when you borrow it. I think he drives like a senior citizen, to work and back, trying not to leave a scratch or a dent. Because he doesn't have a car. And I told him, I was like, he's ordered him a bicycle. And I told him, I was like, you'll learn to appreciate things when you don't have them, and you'll take care of other people's things when they loan them, and it will make a difference in your life, and that's how we grow. I'm sure. Sometimes as parents, that's what we have to do. Now, the livestock is either injured or dies. It talks about taking the oath that there was no evil intent or intentional intent that happened to that animal while it was being loaned. That means the person it was being loaned to didn't abuse it or do any damage intentionally. The livestock stolen, the person was not a witness to the event. So if something happens and that animal is taken, but the person that it was on loan to was not present when this happened and didn't witness it, and then the livestock is stolen, the safeguarder is not responsible. The livestock stolen, then payment is required. The livestock killed by a wild animal, the remains are to be presented as evidence. Have you ever had the kid that broke something in the kitchen and brings you the pieces of what's left over? And you're sitting there and you're like, how did you break that cookie jar or whatever? But they bring you the evidence. Well, it just fell off the counter. I accidentally knocked it off. And that's what you're supposed to do. If an animal, a wild animal, a predatory animal, killed the animal that was on loan, if you bring the evidence showing that you had no part in it, that it was an act of God, act of nature, then you don't have to pay restitution. Restitution doesn't need to be paid because there was nothing you could do. It says, if an animal is loaned to his neighbor, the animal dies or injured, the neighbor is not using or present, the simple restitution is made. With simple restitution, you agree on one price for the loss, and you go on. Now, the neighbor is presented or using the animal, or present or using the animal. Restitution, if provisional, upon the payment for the use was rendered. So, if Herman says you can borrow my horse, but you're paying me $100 a day, and I'm paying him $100 a day, and something happens to that animal, he's already compensated for the loss. Fair?
Depends on how much that animal costs.
That's why it's up to the owner that's loaning it out to make sure that that compensation gets paid. Right? So Herman, if that animal was well valued over a certain amount, Herman could say, you're going to pay me this much per day in case that animal is injured or is lost while you have it in your possession. According to this law. Now, the next thing we look at, we're flipping over, social responsibility. Okay. We're going to probably pick this up next week. Social responsibility. You have the notes. I encourage you to look over it. Okay? Social responsibility is going to have to take care of the sexual relations outside of marriage. Has to deal with seduction. Okay? Seduction. It has to deal with a bride price, the betrothal price that the men would have to pay. We are also going to look at something that we looked at last Friday on the video from Jack Hibbs. Why Israel was not allowed to allow a sorceress to live. That's important. So next week, we're going to get into some really weird, you're going to think, what? Okay? But remember, there is no sin that is old as it is concerning God. When God sees sin, when God sees defilement and unholy things, it's not like it's new. There is nothing new under the sun. It has all been done. These laws are just presenting to Israel to keep them accountable. Before this, God couldn't keep accountability for people's sins. Couldn't justify their righteousness. He had nothing to measure it against. Right? These laws, they give that structure, those boundaries, those do's and don'ts. So he can say, now you've angered me, you haven't kept my laws, now punishment can be equally dealt out. So now he can be angry at them for not keeping laws and say, I'll wipe you off the face of the earth if you're not careful. Accountability. All right, any questions?
You know, Steve, you were talking about Mike and the car situation. When our daughter went off to college, we bought her cars. By no means a new car, it was a good used car. But that car was for her to go to college. She decided later that she'd rather get married than continue her college. So that car came back to us. So it was understood that that car was for her to go to college.
And that's the thing, is we learn this. And it's like Nani said, I paid for my own car, the first car I ever owned. I paid for it. I did this. I did that. And it made me appreciate it more than if my parents just handed me the keys and said, here you go. I can't tell you how many times I had friends that their parents were rich, they had money. They bought this child a car every year, a new car every year, and he would drive that car like he was racing it without a care, thrash it out, the transmission. He'd do everything, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I've got an old Buick Skylark. I had to put a transmission in it. And that car runs better than his car. It's in better condition. Cosmetically, not so. But when it runs, it'll literally burn the tires. Dad said, be careful. That car's a little fast. It's maybe a little too much for you.
He said he had to put the transmission there.
We both put the transmission.
We had to put the
How soon we forget.
We both put that transmission in.
Dad traded a Zemo Lean for my first car, but he gave me to understand that any upkeep on that car was up to me.
And
if I didn't do it, I walked.
That's right. But that's the way we learn. You know what else that is? That's mentorship, Herman. It's mentorship. Your dad was doing mentorship. That was, you know what? I'll give you some advice, but this is your responsibility. It's time for you to do this, but I'll nursemaid you through it. You know, but I'm not going to fix the problem. It's up to you. And that's the way it is. When we look at these laws are meant to respect each other and treat each other fairly, equally, just. When God is very just, okay? He doesn't discriminate. He sees us equally. As some people say, well, I took care of this. Why am I getting punished for this? When across the board, you're just as guilty for that one thing as somebody for 5 other things, because God only sees it as one. A transgression is a transgression, right? And so these laws, they seem harsh. Death for this? But when you look at it, it leads to something worse. It leads to deeper sin and a defilement and a corruption that sends you into a black hole that you can't get out of. And I learned that this week. When God can put you on trial, God doesn't allow you to be tried or stumble. As Satan sends that message to you, because he knows the best way to do it is through messages, and we stumble ourselves. When you look at it that way, it gives you a different perspective. Well, the devil made me do it. No, he gave you that little shock, and you decided to do it yourself. You can't blame Satan. Satan's just, he's not able to deal with Christians as a non-Christian. Non-Christian, he doesn't work that hard. He doesn't even lift a finger. But with Satan and Christians, he knows he can't possess you, he can't take you over. That's right. And these laws. And when you look at these laws, Israel. This is for Israel. People want to tie it to us as Christians and tie it to us as a church. That these are the rules. This is the theology. This is doctrine. It's the spirit of what that law meant. Peace with each other, respecting each other, treating each other equally, loving each other, and showing compassion. And that's what the whole idea of these laws are. For us to look at it and say, this is the heart, this is the spirit of it. All right. I'll go ahead and pray and dismiss us. Lord, thank you this evening for this study. Lord, thank you for showing us and teaching us about the spirit of the law that you gave your nation, that you built, that you chose. Lord, I just thank you for this time. I thank you for those that are here tonight, those that are watching. Lord, just let us use some of these laws and spirit as we walk through our daily Christian life, realizing that we live the spirit of the law as Christ had instructed and commanded. Live by the spirit of the law, not by the law itself. Lord, I just thank you for this time. I thank you for these people. I thank you for the church. Now just see us safely home. Guide and direct us throughout the week. Pray this in your precious and holy name. Amen.
Here is a single issue.